the Integra. It is, without a doubt, Japan's best front-wheel drive car. It came from a time before computers and safety ruined everything, and it was built by a company that only knows how to do one thing: push the limits of design to the absolute breaking point. Or at least, that was true. Today on Overdrive, we give you Integra. Why do we care about a car's name so much? We hate the Mustang Mach-E, not just because it's an uninspiring electric crossover, just like all the other uninspired electric crossovers, but because Mustang means something to us. It's like when Coca-Cola changed their recipe. People fought it tooth and nail, not because they didn't like the taste, because the old Coke taste brought back a flood of old memories. And guess what? The old Coke came back. In 1985, the top line in the Washington Post reads, "Coca-Cola is bringing back the real thing." So, when I say the word Mustang to you, believe me, I ain't talking about a boring crossover. But unfortunately, when it comes to the new Integra, I don't think they're bringing the old recipe back. We've had the new Eclipse, there's talk about a crossover Corvette, but the newcomer to the chopping block is our beloved Integra. I don't know about you, but when I heard they were announcing it, my only thought was, oh no, not a new Coke disaster again. Just not again. To find out if it passes the taste test, we have to start with why TEGI is such an important mark. Our journey begins in 1986, when Honda, the company known for ultra-reliable but ultra-simple little cars, decided that they were going to compete against the likes of BMW. To do that, they created a bunch of new labels: Clio and Primo and Verno. And most importantly, in the US, they coined Acura, which went from zero to hero when Acura outsold BMW just 2 years later. The reason for all the success? Mostly the Legend, which competed directly with cars like the BMW 5 Series. But right there with it was a car that would become synonymous with Japanese performance: the Integra.
The Acura Integra, 16-valve sports sedan.
Although in 1986 it wasn't quite the sports car that it's become. It was mostly a semi-luxurious car that got good gas mileage. A Celica competitor. But for people who just got promoted to manager, that changed with the introduction of the second generation in 1989. See, Honda had an ace up their sleeve. Something they needed to share with the world: VTEC. In Japan, the very first vehicles to ever receive the new tech were the Integras. But we had to wait until 1992, when the GSR trimmed Integra was let loose on US soil. Spoiler alert, it was worth the wait. The B17A1 is legendary for how easy it is to tune. And since, unlike a lot of front-wheel drive cars, the Integra could handle really well thanks to the independent wishbone suspension, it became a driver's car hero. Cheap enough to buy, easy to repair. And for its time, it could haul the mail. Honda saw the potential. And in 1994, high on the sales success they'd been having, we got the third generation, aka the one everyone knows about. The one you see racing through your mind when you close your eyes. Okay, little confusing here. First off, there's the Spider Eye Integras, the ones we have in America with the 4 headlights, and the JDM Honda Integras that look a whole lot better. Then there are the trims: RS for the base model, LS, which is an RS with some leather, SE, which is a GS, which is really just an RS, and just because, screw you, the GSR is the SIR depending on where you buy it. And that's the one you want, since it had the B18C1 VTEC engine, which is absolutely one of the greatest of all time. Outside the engine being bored out an additional 100 millimeters, the third gen Integra had evolved into a proper sports car. The suspension they developed on the second gen, that double wishbone job, it got truly dialed in. And this car would go down in history as one of the best handling front-wheel drive cars ever built. In fact, you could get oversteer if you weren't careful. If you don't even know what that means, then just know that it's something that's super rare for a wrong-wheel drive car. If anyone is thinking of buying an Integra, the 3rd gen GSR is the one to have. It's the second best, and it's likely the only one you can afford. I know which one everyone really wants though. I know because even I want it, and front-wheel drive JDM life isn't exactly my first car category of choice. The Integra Type R. It's 1995, you are Honda, and you want to show off. What do? Take your sporty little DC2 Integra and you turn it into a factory-prepped, road-legal race car. First, you tune that B18C up to nearly 200 horsepower, making it one of the highest displacement to horsepower engines ever. Then you give it a limited slip diff, strip out everything that's unnecessary so it's light as hell, and do a bunch of chassis and suspension wizardry to make it handle even better. The GSR was a sporty car. It could keep up and even leave Miatas, no problem. The Type R then was on a completely different level. And unlike the Civic R, which Honda didn't think us Americans deserved, in 1997, they did release the Integra Type R for purchase stateside. And I want to impress this on you, because I have a feeling some of you don't really understand. That's okay. I was alive back then and I saw it happen. But it's an old story now. The Integra Type R wasn't very expensive. 20 grand would get you one. Half the price of the RX-7 or the Supra. And yeah, I know, they're worth way more now. Heck, this one just sold for $112,000. But back then, half the price of its competition. Price didn't matter out on track though, since the Type R could run with any of them. And maybe even more importantly, when it broke, us normal people could afford the repair bills. That's what it took to become legendary. And it's why you still see them out on the road today making way too much power and turning heads wherever they go. The year 2000 was the last year of the Type R, which was the end of possibly the greatest front-wheel drive car ever. It wasn't the last of the Integras though. In 2002, the Mighty H would give us the 4th gen Honda Integra, or as we call it in America, the Acura RSX. And I think this is a car that's still getting slept on. A lot of people think of the Integra and they only think of the 95 through 2000s. The truth is that the 2002 to 2006 RSX are still great. The K20 is a phenomenal engine, and the Type S is the first Integra to get a 6-speed with 200 horsepower. And even though they got rid of the trick double wishbone suspension, it's got phenomenal handling considering it's front-wheel drive. It's a fantastic car to own and drive. Just don't really expect any Acura luxury. The older Integras at least tried to be a little fancier than the Civic. The RSX gave up entirely on that notion. It is a very basic interior. Unfortunately, that was probably its downfall. The Civic Si had the same K20, and the tuning culture that elevated the Integra name to legendary status, well, it wasn't getting the clicks like it used to in 2005. Honda ended the Integra in 2006. Acura's TSX replaced it if you wanted something more luxurious than a Civic. And the Civic Si replaced it if you didn't. If this were a story that was better written, that'd be the end of it. The hero reaches their peak, struggles a bit, then hands the torch off to the new generation of turbocharged cars, and preserves their dignity. Reality is never well written though. And so now, there's a new version. I'm gonna be honest, it looks fine, but I don't really get it. It's basically a Civic Si. Same turbocharged engine, same basic shape, same 6-speed transmission. Ooh, it's got fog lamps though, so at least there's that. It's also a little bit bigger. I'm just not convinced yet. The Civic Type R is an absolute monster. It makes 300 horsepower and only weighs 3,000 pounds. The Integra Type R was a monster, 200 horsepower and 2,600 pounds. Both have over 160 horses per ton. This new Integra has 30 horsepower per ton less than either. It's not gonna feel fast. And the OG Type R could hang with the Supra of its time for half the cost. The new Integra Type S is projected to be around 40 grand, or the same price as the much faster base Supra. Now, I think the Integra will sell well, I do. If people want a fancy Civic or a manual TSX, it's there for them. I just think we're a long way away from the insanity of the best handling front-wheel drive car. And that makes me a little sad. I asked in the beginning, what's in a name? To the marketing team, I guess it's nothing more than a way to generate controversy. So, here's my challenge, Acura. Prove me wrong. Prove to me that the Integra name still means something, and that Honda still has what it takes to engineer perfection. Make me eat my words by launching the greatest Type R ever.